Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick demonstration of how I take a piece of artwork on paper and mount it to a cradle board. So this is a 6 by 6 inch cradle board. It's probably 3/4 inch high. And this is a larger piece of artwork, but I've decided that, you know, it's got a lot of layers of paint on there, probably 10 or 12 layers of paint on there in various places. And I've decided that I'm going to make it into a 6 by 6. And so this is a 6 by 6, just like a viewer mat. I cut these out of like scrapbook paper or art paper just so I can see, you know, what I'm working with. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide, you know, what I like and what I'm keeping for my artwork. So I think, you know, that's where I want it to end up. I like where everything is. And I take a straight pin. This is, again, I completely made up this method of doing this. I take a straight pin and I stick it like in the corner here, and I put a tiny little hole in 2 corners. So right here I have little holes. That's it. That's all I need this mat for, is for a little bit of placement. Then I go on the back and I can see 2 tiny holes. I don't know if you can see them, but there's a tiny hole there, and somewhere over here I'm sure there's a tiny hole. Yep, there it is. There it is. So I'm going to take a ruler and I'm just going to draw a line from one tiny hole to the next tiny hole. And by the way, this is a quilting ruler. If you don't have one, I highly recommend these, even for working on paper, because you can see through them. You can get all sorts of increments of measurement. I love using this for stuff. So now, okay, so I have one line. That's all I have. But I know this is going to be a 6-inch square. So I just line this up. And again, I can see through the ruler, so I know right where I'm going. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? 6. And do that again over here. Draw 6. And I should probably do it like this. Just make sure I'm making a nice straight line here. Yep. And so now I have a mark on the back of the paper where I want my panel to go. And again, if you cut your paper to size, then you put it up along the edges. I like to have it a little bit bigger, because then what I'm going to do is I will trim it off. Once it's dry, I'm going to just trim it off with like a box cutter knife, get a nice clean edge that way. And I know that I have, you know, completely gone to the edge of the cradle panel. Okay, so now I have this, and I'm going to apply some, I have an old, much loved credit card that has expired that I use for this. I use pH neutral adhesive. This is Line Co. Love the stuff. Easy to use. I keep it in a squirt bottle. I actually have like a gallon jug, and I just keep putting it in here. Now I apply the adhesive to both the panel and to the paper, making sure to get it in the corners. Let me get a clean credit card because it's white glue. And I just scrape this so that it covers all of the surface that I want to adhere to the panel. I try to get a nice thin coat. You get a little bit of working time with this. Not a ton, but again, depends how thin you have it. Get a nice thin coat here. You don't want gobs, but you don't want it to be dry back here either. And then I'm going to do the same here. Some glue. Got a couple dry spots, don't want that. And this piece, I really wasn't sure if I was going to mat it and put it in a frame, but I really liked it more by itself. All right, try not to get too much on the edges. You can clean it. We're going to clean it up later, but it's good to have not too much there. All right, so now glue on here, glue on here. All I have to do is put my cradle panel within the lines. And give it a nice flip. Little piece of parchment paper so I don't scrape it up or ruin it, do anything that I don't want to do to it. And I'm just going to take another credit card. You can take a brayer. You can take anything you want to smooth this out. I think I've gotten it pretty well adhered, and then I like to come in and just make sure there aren't any like glue bumps. Yeah. And then I will take a brayer just to, if there is any glue. And I'm applying a fair amount of pressure because you want your surface to be, relatively smooth. Obviously, if your work has texture, you're not going to worry about smoothing that out. But, a little smoothness here. And now, you can see the edges are nice and well adhered. Flip it over, and I have a tiny little bit of glue that's squeezed out the edge. I just wipe it. This is a wet paper towel. A barely wet paper towel, a little damp here. And I just wipe it just so that when this is completely dry and I am trying to cut the edges off, all right, I will not have to cut through the glue as well. Okay, so now I've got it adhered to paper. It's good to go. I am going to place this in between two sheets of parchment paper. Where's my other parchment paper? I'll do that. And I'm going to leave it overnight, stacking some dictionaries on top. These dictionaries come in handy for a lot of things, but they're a nice weight. That's it. Leave it for, I leave it overnight. I always leave it overnight. And then I'll be back in another video to show you how I trim that off. Okay. Thanks. Hope this was helpful.